Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the second update Red Skies dev server, and it's time to have a look at the Dante Alighieri. This is a new battleship that is coming to the game for the Italians. It is the first of its kind for Italy, being the first battleship that is going to be here. And it's at the end of the Blue Water Fleet, obviously the Zara and the Raimondo Montecuccoli being before it, and it's also the first 6.0 for Italy as well. Hopefully we see more battleships and battlecruisers for Italy. They're the nation right now which is lacking the most in this regard, and to see the Dante is awesome for that reason. The Dante has access to 4 separate turrets, and they all have triple-mounted 305mm guns. So a pretty similar loadout to a lot of the other larger ships we have in the game. 12 guns overall of the 305mm caliber, and because of the setup of them, you can get a pretty effective broadside with getting all of the guns on board at the same time. Another thing to note is it does have 12 120mm single mounts, which you can actually see alongside the sides. So you can see 6 here and then 6 on the other side. It also has 4 dual mounts 120s, which are in these little turrets right here that you can see dotted around the machine, so give them a little bit more I suppose maneuverability to get these shots off. And then also it has 4 76mm plus another 12 76mm, which are slightly different types, and 2 40mm as well. Now what is interesting about a lot of these 76s is a lot of them are mounted on the main turrets, so you can actually see them here on it, and you actually get sailors which sit on them to fire at enemies, which I always find quite amusing. You can see them here. All the different guns have all of the ones on them. The front and back main guns have 5 on each, and then the middle ones have 3 single guns. I really wouldn't like to be on the main turrets when those fire. And then also you have stuff like this, which is I believe the 40mm, which we see around. So there's a lot of really cool, interesting weaponry on the Dante, and it is one of the machines at the higher echelons of the game that has access to a lot more secondary armament than we used to, compared to many other vehicles. If we have a look at the armor profile, the belt it has is 250mm, which isn't too bad, but it's backed up by these coal bunkers, and coal bunkers just give it a ridiculous amount of armor to be able to protect that central area. You can see here the variable thickness armor dimensions are 2618. Not too bad. So the coal bunkers, even though they'll get nuked, you know, they'll be able to defend whatever is behind them at the time. Then you also have 203mm of higher belt armor here, then 100 on top of it, so not a ton, but enough. 100mm at the front, and also a 76mm at the back. The turrets themselves on the sides are 220mm with 250 on the face of them, meaning that they'll be able to tank a little bit more damage. And then even right here they have a little back plate on the guns themselves, which is another 203mm. The ammo elevators are covered by 240mm worth of thickness, and then also you have 250 here on the back, I suppose conning, bridge, and then or the secondary area, and then you have 305 on the actual bridge itself, right here, which is pretty impressive. Has a ton of different smoke funnels, actually has 4 stacks, which is a lot. Normally you only see 1 or 2 on a lot of these vehicles, and the detail that this machine has is incredible. Even just down to the ammo elevators themselves, everything on this looks beautiful. Once again, a stunning piece of design from whoever created this in the game itself. You can see the huge engines at the bottom there. When it comes to those 305mm though, they get access to some pretty interesting rounds. So you have the SAP, which is semi-armor piercing shell, has a HE effect with 31 kilos versus of explosive mass. Just to give you an idea of why the Wyoming doesn't do as much damage as that. This only has 10 kilos worth of explosive mass. So the standard stock shell on the Alighieri has access to 3 times that amount of explosive mass. It also pens 394, 338, 150, so it should be able to go through a decent amount of stuff, even at range. And then it also gets an upgraded AP-CBC round, which only has an explosive mass of 5.66, but also look at that penetration, 626, 503, 215 across the board. That is pretty damn good, and also the muzzle velocity of 861 meters per second. So you can either go for the round, which has more HE filler if you are dealing with lighter armed targets, or you can annihilate anybody's armor with this one right here. It also doesn't get access to too much else. The 120s have access to SAP, which is pretty standard. It's not going to be that useful at killing stuff, apart from doing damage to stuff like destroyers and also light cruisers. The 76mm APHE, once again, really not very good. This is only going to be used, or it's only going to be good, I should say, against stuff such as very light targets like battle boats or PT boats, which you don't really see too much in higher echelons, especially at the length that the stuff like the Dante is going to be attacking from. And when it comes to modifications, it's a little bit sparse, and since it's an end-of-the-line vehicle, that makes it a little bit more rough, right? The fact that the end of the line is here means the modification costs are going to be pretty high for this machine, and that is a bit of an issue. It also only has 970 crew on it, which, if you compare that to some of the other machines we have in the game, if you have a look at stuff like the Helgoland, it has 1100 crew on it, the Kaiser 1084, the Westfalen 1087, the Von der Tann, it has nearly 1200. The Dante has a little bit less crew, meaning that its survivability when it comes to its percentages is going to be a bit lower, which hurts it a little bit, but hopefully it shouldn't be too bad. The main things, I think, for me when it comes to the Dante is going to be reload rate and just being able to output as much damage as possible with these main caliber guns. If you obviously aren't able to do that, it's going to be a bit of a rough time, because the secondaries are going to be able to munch pretty much anything they want. By the way, there's the sailors that you can see on the front, which I think is a really nice touch. But the secondaries are going to munch, you know, whatever they really feel like when it comes to these smaller machines. There's plenty of power in them to be doing a ton of damage to anything they face, which is going to be very useful. But against stuff such as the battleships and the heavy cruisers and stuff like that, what you need is way more damage from the main guns, and that is obviously very important. So hopefully with the Dante, there is enough explosive mass in the 305s to be able to not just annihilate vehicles in one hit, but cripple them enough so you can wait for the reload in order to, you know, be able to fight for another day. Because you can see there, with just one barrage, we've taken out 2 guns and basically set off 2 separate ammo racks, showing how deadly the shell can be. But look at the reload. Like, we're sat here for an incredibly long time. Now, understand, I'm a level 1 crew because my account got reset on the dev server. But we're just sat here for a long time. We're pretty much just waiting for hell to freeze over in order to fire again. And that means that that initial hit has to be very, very good to be worth it for a machine like this to work. Because the Dante is not just going up against stuff such as light cruisers, it's going up against much more fearsome objects, such as this battleship over here. And also at the same time, it's going up against enemies such as nations, which have access to multiple battleships and multiple battle cruisers. So it's going to take a long time to take them down, you know, minutes, tens of minutes, even maybe 20 minutes. And the one thing you've also got to understand is they have made it so the vehicles themselves are actually more tanky compared to what they were before. So it's very important to be actually more accurate with these machines and also be able to land more shells. and it's just going to take so long to do it in this thing. Hopefully it'll be able to keep up with the pace of everybody else. I'm happy that the Dante is here. I'm happy that we have more parity when it comes to the higher echelons of the game for Naval, and I hope it is another step forward for Naval to increase that parity. Naval has had a real issue in the past where one nation or two nations kind of dominate the whole what would you call it, like the whole area of it, and then it just switches between the nations over and over again. And I'm hoping that at some point we get to a point where every nation is viable in its own little way, and with additions like the Dante, it's definitely possible. I just wish the reload was a little bit better. And as always, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank BRFC, Swollen Ostrich, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Lafouche, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.